Welcome to Whispers from Within. I'm your host, Katja Aurora, intuitive healer, space holder, and inner wisdom guide, here to share insights from a lifetime of walking between worlds. This is the sacred space where intuition leads, the soul speaks, and ancient wisdom meets everyday life. In each episode, we explore energy, healing, and the human experience, guided by presence, truth, and laughter. Let's listen in and remember who we really are. I breathe in the light of truth and love. I'm whole, I'm sovereign, I'm free. Only what resonates with my highest evolution may enter this space, all else dissolves into clarity. Every word, sound, and silence shared here is carried in coherence, purity, and resonance. May each listener receive exactly what serves their awakening in perfect timing and perfect alignment. This field is open, this field is clear, this field is love, and so it is. Welcome everyone to this very special episode that I called Jasper the Wisdom Keeper, and it's a love letter to my soul dog. So this comes with a warning that I might be emotional as I'm recording this, and I want to tell you why I'm recording this. So this is not to teach anything or to give answers. It is simply because memories change. And I know that one day I won't remember every little detail, every little thing that made Jasper who he was. Now I still do. And so this episode is simply for him. And it's a way of keeping the little details alive while they're still close enough for me to touch. And perhaps this is for anyone who has ever loved an animal or another being deeply. And in this moment, before I begin, I just invite you to breathe with me 2 rounds of the 4-4-8 breath. So take a moment to sit where you are, to take a pause and breathe in for 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, and out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and in 2, 3, 4, and hold 2, 3, 4, and out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this breath is just a stabilizing breath, and it helps me as much as you. So this might be a long episode, but it is really worth taking the time to listen and maybe gain something from it. I want to share this because there's so much in it, and I really want to deeply honor this big being that was Jasper. He was my soul dog, as I have already said, and he was with me for more than 12 years. He was a black Labrador Hound mix, and it was an accident litter. So he was a mix of a Labrador and an Anglo-Française, and he was born in France, in southern France. He had deep hazel eyes and a very wise and gentle look. He was very calm. He had a quiet confidence about him, and he loved people almost more than his own kind. And he would look at someone as though he'd known them forever. He had a really deep thirst for life and a curiosity about him. He had a poise, almost like royalty. And when he would lie down, sometimes he would tuck his paw that looked like almost a pinky up. Like when you look at a human being with a pinky up, it's very posh. And he had this paw tucked under as if he was royalty. He oozed wisdom. So his whole being was just wise beyond a dog soul, really. So he had a very old soul nature about him. And he simply wasn't just my dog. He was my teacher. And now I want to share a few funny stories that I remember about him, just to paint the picture of what living with Jasper was like. So whenever I spoke to him,
He had this head tilt, a very curious head tilt, as if he knew everything I said to him. And he would have that head tilt with others as well. But yeah, that's something I really remember very closely. We played find it game often. So I would put treats around the home, and I would then tell him the command of find it, and he would search for the treats in the home, and they were up and down and everywhere. And he just loved that game so much. He would sometimes want me to play this game with him and would nudge me to play it with him. So, and this also was another thing to get treats. He loved treats. And one of the things I remember about the treats themselves, we had a lot of chew treats for him, to keep him occupied for longer, but that never lasted very long. So he got a chew treat, and we joked that he would inhale that. He literally just took 5 seconds to eat a chew treat when it was meant to last for 5 minutes or so. And we joked that he's inhaled it again. And he then had a look on his face afterwards as if to say, was this everything? Is there more? um, and then he had a stare about him. So when he wanted something or he tried to speak to me, or convey something to me, he would sit in front of me and he would stare at me so long until I would take notice of him staring at me. Um, there was another thing that was really funny. When we went into pet shops, anywhere in pet shops, especially pet shops, but other shops as well, over the time, because he kind of at some point knew that when we got into shops and there was a counter, there would usually be the chance of getting treats from the counter or from behind the counter. So he knew this. So he always made a beeline to the counters. And when he sat there and he drooled. He drooled a lot. So within 3 seconds of him sitting there, there would be a puddle on the ground because he drooled so much. So every time we went into the pet shop, because you knew we'd get a lot of treats from behind the counter, there was always a puddle left behind as we left the shop. So he was known as the drooling one coming into the pet shop. Um, we also we had a tiny little garden when I was still with my ex-husband, and we decided to get fake grass in this tiny little backyard because the normal grass just died when you weed on it. So we got the fake grass, and from that moment on, he refused to toilet in there. So we could never take him out of the back garden to wee because he wouldn't do it out there. So we had to take him out for a walk from that moment on. So it completely defeated the object to get that fake grass in the first place. And he had a purr. He purred, yes, like a cat. So when he wanted to be cuddled, when he sat next to me, sometimes he would just purr like that, sitting next to me to get my attention, or he would purr when I would pet him as well. So he must have confused being a dog with a cat. I think he had an incarnation of being a cat before he was this dog. So he remembered that being a cat and used that in his, even as a dog. So that was very curious, very funny. He also had a very noisy yawn like this. Ah. So he always made himself known. So it wasn't quiet when he was around. But he was very quiet as a dog generally. He wouldn't bark very much. He wouldn't claim his home or bark when there was somebody coming. He was very quiet there. But he was very noisy in his sleep. So when he had dreams, he would have this very high pitched bark during his sleep time, when normally his bark would be very deep and like, yeah, like a hound. It was a very deep bark that he had. His natural bark was deep, houndy bark, not like a Labrador at all. But he wouldn't bark very often, and so his sleep time was always noisier than his actual daytime was. And sometimes in his sleep also, obviously, his paws were going as if he was chasing something. That is a very normal thing for dogs, and any dog owner would know this. He also had times where he was like a lunatic when he had his 5 minutes. He would roll on the ground like a new lunatic, snorting, or he would run around in circles like a rocket. And his tail's put up between his legs. He was just like he was stung by a bee or something. He just went round in circles. He was very stubborn, and so sometimes he he wouldn't do what he was asked to do. He would just not do what he didn't want to do. Like, we tried to get him to fetch things, and he just didn't fetch anything. He didn't like to fetch balls at all. He was just looking at me like, "Hey, you can fetch it yourself. I don't fetch this ball for you." Um, and the only thing that he loved to fetch were Daddy's socks. So when Daddy threw the socks down the stairs, he would fetch those socks. That he loved that game, and we still have videos of that as well. Um, he had a dislike for carrots. He literally spat them out. So when I gave him carrots, he also had a dislike for swimming, and being a Labrador, he had like these things between his claws, right? There were swimming things between the Labrador, so supposed to be swimming. But I think the hound took over with that, so he didn't like swimming at all. He only went into the water if it was very hot to cool himself down. That was the only time he really liked to go into the water. He had endless patience. So when we went into pubs or restaurants, we would always have a blanket or a towel with us, and we rolled this up like in a nest, and he would then take a seat, take to sit down or lie down, and he would not make a sound at all, and he would be absolutely patient as long as he got a treat now and then and some water. We would always get comments about how good he was and so patient as we were having our meals or talking in the pub, even with friends. He was just disappearing under the table, basically, and was really good like that. There was one time we remember where he got up to Daddy, limping, with an expression that said, "Daddy, I've hurt my paw." And then Daddy rubbed his paw for a moment, and then he trotted off as if nothing had happened. So he was good as theater. He was good at pretending. And I clearly and distinctly remember this open and happy expression on his face, um, like a smile after a long woodland or beach walk. And I remember him running through a field with long grass, like high grass, and jumping through a wheat grass field, like wheat field, because he couldn't see. He was not big enough to see, so he bounced through the field as he was going, and that was so funny as well. Um, he had very funny sleeping positions. He also had a like a habit of pinking his head against something when he was lying down. Just a way of having his head higher than the rest. And he also had a very funny way of sitting on the stairs. So his bum was sitting on a stair, and then his front legs were one step down. Yeah, it was very funny. And from that position, he could overlook everything that happened downstairs. And the I think the thing that I mostly miss now is the nudges. So he had a way of nose nudging me to get me away from my laptop. So sometimes under my arm, or he also sometimes pawed me on my thigh to make me aware that I hadn't moved and sat at my laptop for far too long, and that it was high time to get up and pay him some attention. So, and sometimes it was when I was in the night because I'm a night owl. So I often spend the nights doing my most creative work. And he made sure to remind me that it was bedtime. So yeah, that was living with Jasper. And there were other things that I remember that made him who he was, his character. So he had, even though he was a Labrador, and they are very cuddly normally, if you don't know dogs, he had his boundaries. So he only wanted so many cuddles before he needed his space. So he would give me a look or he would move away from me when he had enough cuddles. So he had clear boundaries in place. It was more like a cat in that respect. He wasn't really being a Labrador there, and it can be also a hound sort of characteristic more than the Labrador. He was also very choosy whom he befriended, like with the dogs and with humans. Even though he was always very curious and saying hello, he was very distinctively choosing his friends. So sometimes um, he would not play with the dog because that was beneath him. But when it was the right one, he would play with them. And he also had a great determination. So when he liked another dog, especially female dogs, he was a womanizer. He would be very determined. He would not let off, even if the female dog said no to him. He would be very persistent. There was a great determination, and he would try again and again and again to get close, even when the female dog wasn't really on heat or anything. He had a way of protecting me and others as well. It was sometimes challenging with male dogs. He was never done. So he was intact until the very last moment of his life. And sometimes that meant that he would get aggressive with other male dogs who weren't done. That was challenging, especially when I was looking after him by myself. But he mellowed a lot when he was older. Yeah, but that I remember distinctly as well. He stood up for himself if he needed to, but it was never really that serious. It never ended up being a serious business at all. He had a lot of curiosity and he loved to learn. So he always tried to expand his horizons. He loved adventures and he was so curious that he sometimes disappeared on us. And there was one time when he disappeared in Windsor Great Park and he didn't come back for about 15 minutes. And my ex-husband almost thought that he'd lost him, but he always came back. He had the same in Germany when we visited my parents. He sometimes had times when he just found something so enticing that he chased something in the woods and did take his time to come back, but he always came back. So he never really stayed away. It just could take a while before he came back. And we just had to have patience basically for him to come back again. He had great trust in me. And he had a way of doing yoga with me as well. So when I was doing my yoga poses, he would sometimes lie against me when I was in Shavasana. He would put his head on me to lie down with me, letting the presence and the coherence and the practice come in deeper into me. He would lie with me doing that. He communicated with me through telepathy, and that from the very first moment that I connected with him, even before we got him, he connected with me telepathically. That was my way or our way to communicate. And so sometimes he would sit in front of me and he would give me a picture in my mind to tell me what he wanted. And the same was the other way around. So I sometimes sent him pictures in my mind so that he would understand what I wanted from him. And that was sometimes even when he went on his adventures on a walk, he was running ahead quite far. And if I wanted him to come back, I would stop and just simply think him sitting in front of me. That was my picture. And he then came back and sat in front of me. So he understood this way of communicating so well. And this was one of the things where he stared at me as well to get a picture into my mind until I would actually listen to what he wanted to try and convey. He had an immense patience. I already said that, but he always waited for me. I sometimes took a long time to get ready for a walk or going out to the pet shop. When I said that to him, he knew the word pet shop. So um, he had tremendous patience with me because I sometimes didn't get my act together and took a while before I was ready to go out, or wanted to finish something before going out. And he just really had patience with me. He would nudge me, but then he would patiently wait for me to get ready. He was so adorable like that. And another way I distinctly remember about him, he was always taking part in my healing sessions. So whenever I did a healing session, often he would be in the room with me doing the healing session, either remotely or in person. And he would always know exactly what was needed. So when to comfort somebody or when to stay away, when to make a noise and when to be really quiet, he would just know exactly what to do in every situation. And he's now still with me when I'm doing my healing sessions. And I believe he can actually help even better from the other side now. But yeah, we get to that later on. He had an innate ability to self regulate. So he ate grass when he needed, or soil from particular spots when he needed that for his body. He also was a sun child. He loved the sun. And even though he was black, I had to be a little bit careful with him going into the sun because he would overheat very quickly. And yes, he knew when that was the case, but I sometimes had to take him inside earlier just to prevent him overheating. He loved nature. He loved the earth. He knew what was good for him. And he was just really wise even in that aspect. So when he knew he needed something, he would just nudge me to go out, and in nature, you would find the thing that would help him. So, and I was in awe watching him do this. So every single, up until the very last moment, I was really in awe watching him, knowing exactly what he needed, which grass halm it was that he needed, which soil spot it was that he needed to, regulate his system. It was, yeah, just absolute a joy to watch, really. And so, just to say, he taught me so much, not about dogs, really. It was about life. So, me watching him going through his life, he taught me a lot of things. And these are the things that I remember now that come to mind when I think of him. So, he taught me presence. He taught me to be really present because he was very quick. And I needed to be present with him in that moment so that I could be there before something happened, but also be there with him in the moment. He taught me presence. And I really notice that now because when he's not with me, I notice that I drift off into thoughts and I have to remind myself to be really present, feet on the ground and breathing the air when he's no longer with me. He continues to teach me that. So that was one thing. Waiting patiently was another. I really learned patience through him, especially in the last few months. I kind of devoted my life to him in these last moments, having to be really patient with him. And that was just me giving back to him what he had done for all his life. So it was just as well that I gave that back to him. He taught me getting away from my laptop that I need breaks. He taught me getting outside, going outside as well, because I tend to hermit a lot, which also meant I stayed indoors for far too long sometimes, and he would nudge me to go outside. He also taught me to slow down. and to really savor the moment in that slowing down, to allow myself and give myself permission to slow down. He taught me feeling the wind, feel the wind, and just being present in the nature, things around me, sniffing. I still see his nose move as he sniffed the air. And he listened very carefully. So his ears would prick up and he would listen really closely to what happened around him. And obviously, he would hear so much more than I did. But yeah, I remember his ears pricking up and listening. He loved grounding on the grass, not just sitting on the grass, but actually lying down in the grass, really connecting to the earth and feeling held by her. He loved grounding. It was one of his favorite things to do, especially in the last few months. He loved being in the sun. This is why I called him my sun child. He followed his joy. So wherever there was something to explore, this is where he would go. Especially when it was an open field and he could see far and wide, he would go. He would just go and get to that adventure, whatever that was. If it was another dog, if it was another human being, he had to say hello to everything. And that wasn't always a nice experience because sometimes it was a dog that didn't like him. And so I had to be really quick. And I preferred walking in like in a woodland with him because it meant he couldn't see as far and he would stay closer. But he still had fun exploring the surroundings and he loved taking new walks as well because he didn't know where we were going and he decided with me where to go. He trusted his instincts very much, and that's another thing I learned from him, really trusting his instincts. Like I said, he had a way of self-regulating, and that was purely by instinct. I could see when that took over. He just knew what he needed to do. I also trusted myself through that much more than I would without his teaching me that. He taught me to take naps, to take a pause when needed, to give in to nature when needed, not to push myself so hard. He really, yeah, just taught me to be in the moment. He was very determined. He was never giving up or giving in. I'll tell a story about that in a moment as well. But yeah, he was very determined. And to this day, I remember that as well. I think we were a really good match in terms of the stubbornness, because I can be very stubborn. And we sometimes yeah, had a little competition going on who was the most stubborn. um, he taught me to love simply but deeply. That was one of the main things he really, really, really taught me. And perhaps more than anything, Jasper changed the relationship I have with myself. So I'm deeply, deeply grateful for that. Hmm. So I want to also speak about the last few months of his life. We got really close in those last few months. And I know that I've shared another podcast with you beforehand where he was still alive talking about the grief that I was going through. And that's not finished. That's continuing, obviously. But I just want to point a few things out. So it was probably the most gentle way of going. He gave me the time, and it was almost 8.5. It was 8.5 months actually from the first notion that I had this emergency situation with him in September, up until June, mid-June. He passed away. And that was 8.5 months. It was a gentle, very gentle phasing out of his life. And I'm really, really deeply grateful for that. He gave me all the warning in advance and a long time to adjust to the notion that he was going to go. He couldn't have done it in any more gentle of a way. So Yeah, that was absolutely profound and very, um, yeah, I just love him so much for that. He did it in the best way he could. And he stayed himself until the very end. And he chose that moment. He chose a new moon day, the 15th of June, 26. And yeah, he stayed himself. He made the choices for himself up until the very end. And the stubbornness that he had and defiance until the very end meant that towards the end, his body was kind of getting weaker. And he had a way of going outside, and we had this lucky weather here in England. There were heat waves coming in and out, and he actually left before the real heat waves struck England. So he timed it so wisely. He stayed. He wanted to stay outside if the weather was good. So we have a field at the back door that we went out in. And at the very end, he couldn't walk longer walks with me anymore. So for the last 2 to 3 months, we only went out into the field and walked through the field. And if the weather was good enough, he would just sit there outside and not come back in, because his look was as if to say, well, it's so nice out here. I don't want to come back in. So sometimes he would just sit there and look inside, look at me inside, wanting me to come back outside with him. But obviously, sometimes I had to just put her indoors and do things, and I didn't have the time to go outside with him. But sometimes I would just stay out there with him for hours on end and just spend the time being in nature, listening to the sounds, grounding, and just being very present with him. So we had a good mixture of the two, spending time together in that field. That field became a really big anchor for both of us, and it still is now. He's buried on that field as well, so it's a real symbolic. Yeah, I still see him um, walking through the field. And you can hear it in my voice. This field means a lot to me now. I often sit out there and speak to him still. Yeah, so there was another thing about his determination that I wanted to mention, because his body, he had a large tumor in his belly at the end, and it was malignant, so it grew fast. And he almost looked pregnant at the end. Obviously, he was male, he wasn't pregnant, but he had trouble getting up. He looked a little bit like a beetle trying to get up at the end, but he was determined. So he was not letting his body dictate. He would just, when he wanted to get up, he got up. That was his determination. He did not let the body fail on him. Um, so again, I just, observed it, and he would not let anything come in his way. He was really, really strong-willed, and he made his body work hard for him. And it was almost like he cried out how far he could push this body in this lifetime. That's how it looked to me as well. He had this courage in living life to the fullest that he could, up until the very end. He wagged his tail up until the very end, and he just made the most of every situation that he could. And that, again, is something I'm taking forwards. He had a grumble, and he grumbled from very early on, actually. And normally it was a grumble like, "Oh, life is so hard. It's such a hard life." And in the last few months, this grumble, he refined this, and he kind of let me know when he wasn't well, so that I could help him. So when he grumbled, often it was an indication that he was uncomfortable or that he needed some support of some kind. And so I listened out for the grumbles at the end. Another thing that I distinctly remember. So there were times in the last few months where he couldn't get up, where he was just really weak, where he went through what I call the death spiral moments when he was fading. He did that a lot with me. We went through this probably 5 times, and each time it was like as if he was dying, and then he came back to life through the night. But when that was the case, when he wouldn't get up, when he was lying in one spot, he always had a bobbing head. So when I walked past or when I was in the other room, every time that he saw me, he would get up, his head would get up. Nothing else moved, but his head was coming up as if to remind me that he was still there, that he was taking note of my actions, that he was still watching me. So his bobbing head is something I really, really remember. Just letting me know that he was checking on me and he was still alert. He had a big trust in me. So anything I gave him to eat, including supplements or anything I put on him, I used essential oils with him that really helped him in the end. He always knew I had his best interest at heart and he trusted me completely. But sometimes he also decided not to have something. So he had CBD oil at the end. And I would give him that on treats, and he decided whether to take them or not. So I let him sniff the treats, and if he wanted to take them, he would take them. But he also had moments when he decided not to take them. So he was in control what he wanted and when he wanted it. Again, he knew exactly what was right for him, and I trusted him in that as well. But yeah, there was a big trust between the two of us. As I already mentioned, he had a joy of living, and he had this life in his eyes up until the very end. So I knew that, when I was told to put him down, I couldn't put him down because he still had this life in his eyes. And he had that until the very end, but he made sure I knew that it was time to help him pass. And he did have help passing over, but he decided when that was. That's another story in itself. But yeah, so he had this life in his eyes, and that's another thing I remember. So he really took life in with all the senses, with everything he had. Yeah, it was beautiful to watch. He had a love for homemade chicken soup, as you would imagine. He also loved steak, but I didn't really know how to make the steak. That was Daddy's specialty. And the last 3 years we lived by ourselves, so he didn't get the steak as often, only when we visited Daddy. But he got a lot of chicken soup in the end, and he really just lapped that up as well. He also loved a portion of rice and peas, and that was his second last meal as well. I remember that. He um, he would sometimes also remind me that I still needed to feed him because sometimes I was so engrossed in a task or something that I forgot, and he would remind me if he didn't have anything to eat, he would nudge me so that I would feed him. At the end, he would decide in which room to sleep, and sometimes that meant that I was sleeping on the floor. I had an arrangement that where I had a mat on the floor and I slept beside him. And sometimes he really cuddled close to me when that happened. I loved when he came up on the sofa to cuddle with me. He put his head on my lap and then he cuddled with me. And then at some point he had enough and he went off on his own. At the end, though, he couldn't go up the sofa anymore. So I stayed on the floor with him and we cuddled like that. And he was always come and lay down in front of me with his back towards me. And then he wanted petting from that. We got very, very close like that. And when I slept on the floor, this sleeping closely was just another way of really, yeah, having this trust between the two of us. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And then there's something else that I will never forget, which is when I woke up and he went through this death spiral moment quite a few times. And when that happened and I could see him waning, I would say goodbye to him in the middle of the night. I would say, if this is the time for you to go, then that is perfect. And I would say goodbye. And each time was letting go a little bit more for me anyway, and with the real possibility of him not being there in the morning. And then I woke up and he had this look in his face because he would always be awake before me and he would look at me like, "Hi, mommy, I'm still here." And I remember this so vividly. These eyes was saying, "I'm still here." It's beautiful. So, yeah, in these 8.5 months that he gave me after the final diagnosis, it was so beautiful to behold. It was just another way, another deep, intimate time to be together. And he taught me so many things. And as he passed away, even afterwards, I just wanted to mention this as well because this life means something. And as he lived this life, he taught me so many things being alive, but then also beyond his passing, it carried on. So I just want to say he's still here with me. I can still feel him in the field. His form has changed, but he's still with me, right? And that would be the same with any other being as well. They change form. They're still with us. They change form. And it depends on the relationship and on the purpose of the relationship, whether they stay with us forever, but they will certainly stick around for a little bit after their death. And I'm recording this about, let me just think, a month and 5 days after his death. So it's still fairly fresh. And I wanted to do this because I still remember everything so closely now that I wanted to, yeah, just put this into this memory bank for myself when I listen back to it. But yeah, this relationship carries on, right? Every relationship that we forge is eternal. It doesn't finish when the form finishes, right? Yes, this particular expression of this being is no longer, but it still carries on in the ether. So I just want to give a moment again to let my tears flow down. So as Jasper passed, he decided to go during the day, and I had asked him to do that, not knowing quite why, but his being here with me had one main focus. It wasn't just that, but this was one major aspect of him being with me. I think I might have mentioned this Irish lifetime that I had before, where I was married to a red coat, a soldier, and this husband. We were married very early, and we weren't married for long. And then my husband was shot, and I held him in my arms as he died. And at that point, I didn't know that I was pregnant, and I got a child, a girl, and this girl got sick when she was 5 years old and died during the night. And yeah, also died on me there. And this Irish lifetime, I was very religious to begin with. And when both of my dear loved ones died, I cursed God. I completely got bitter. I abandoned my faith in a way, although I still stayed in the church community because that was the only connection I still had. I was a woman and I couldn't earn any money, so I was really not looked after by anybody or couldn't earn my keep by anybody, but the church community was the only thing I could still keep. The priest wasn't a very nice man, so I was really bitter. I closed my heart with so many layers in that lifetime, and it was a very long lifetime for me. So I was bitter up until the very end. And Jasper here now came in to help me open these layers of hard walls that I had created around my heart. And even to the point that when he passed, I had to look at this again because the grief came up, right? So he taught me to open the heart. Every time he had a death spiral, every time he was almost going to go, I had to open the heart more and more and more. And I did that even to the last minute. The heart stayed open, and it wasn't easy, but it was through the love that I have for him. The heart stayed open. So, he taught me that to stay present in the love and not in the bitterness of losing something. The only constant in life is change. The only constant in life is change. And so if we are resisting change, we're resisting life. And that's what I chose to do in the other lifetime. I chose to resist life. I couldn't enjoy my life after the death of my beloveds. And so I didn't really fully live. It was a torture to live, but only half live. And in this lifetime, I've chosen to heal this, and Jasper really came in to help me do this. So with that as well, the day he died, when it became the evening hours, I then noticed that I couldn't go to sleep, that I had a fear in me of going to sleep because I didn't want to wake up to the realization that he was gone. I couldn't fathom the thought of waking up and then realizing that he'd gone. So I couldn't sleep. I couldn't go to sleep. And in that moment, I needed to do energy work to release this fear of going to sleep. So being beyond his life, he continued to do healing with me. So in this other lifetime, in the Irish lifetime, it was really difficult for me. In the night hours were the worst, especially because my daughter died in the early morning hours, and there was nobody to talk to, nobody to lean on. The night times were so elongated in this pain that came back to life when Jasper passed, just that first night. I really linked into that again, and I could feel that that was the case. So I did a lot of energy work there to release this. And then there was the morning. So I then eventually went to bed. I think I went to bed about 1:30 or something, after I'd done all the energy work to release this resistance to going to sleep, and eventually went to sleep. In the morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. the next morning, and I'm not an early bird, but this just happened. I woke up very early, and I woke up to another round of healing needing to happen because there was a feeling of emptiness, the feeling of pointlessness, right? The feeling that life had lost its meaning without him, especially in those first moments in the morning. And so I needed again to release this fear of, or this emptiness that was there, because I know I'm here for a purpose. I know I have my purpose. I still live. I have a reason to live still, right? This is not the truth for me here right now, but it was on that first morning. It was really, really strong. And I had remnants of that the following mornings as well. So each morning I would have to do a clearing again of all these remnants and the bleed throughs from this other lifetime. And I just had to remind myself that this is a different lifetime here now, and that he would want me to live fully and to release this last little hurdle to do that properly. And last but not least, there was the loneliness. So this is probably the most profound one that I've realized after he had gone. The love that I had for him and that I expressed towards him when he was still here, he then wanted me to turn towards myself. So one of the reasons to live became my direction of this love towards myself. And that was interesting and and somehow a little bit difficult at the beginning because I hadn't done this in the past, right? This was new to me as well. So, and I'm still here learning this now, right? So directing this love, this deep love that I felt for him, this caring for him towards myself, because now there's nobody else but me, right? So yes, when we have other people dependent on us, then we often direct this love outside. But really, if we don't love ourselves, we don't have any capacity to love the others in the same way. And if our cup is not filled, then we can't be there for the others, right? So this is what I'm learning now. This love towards me, and I'm still in that process now. It's not finished. Never a finished product, right? We're always evolving. We're always, developing. It always carries on. Life carries on, and the only constant is change. So even after death, he is still teaching me and nudging me to go out to his grave at least once a day if I have nowhere else to go, because otherwise I tend to hermit and stay inside. So he's giving me these tasks to do because he knows me so well, and I continue to be in connection with him. I continue to be in contact with him. He is here with me all the time. But I want to give you one last memory as the ending of this. He took me on a walk in the field on the 3rd of May this year, and that was a month and a bit before he died. And the way he did that, he went out and he looked at me as if to say, "Mummy, come with me. I want to show you something." And it was a lovely day outside. There were birds singing and the sun was shining. And we have an oak tree on that field, which is the keeper of the land. That's what I call it. It's a big oak tree and it's very prominent, and you can see it from all directions. It's a standalone tree, quite a mighty tree. And this is where Jasper started to walk. And he led me through this field, along on the left hand side of the field, going all the way down. There's a little dip on that left hand side, and we went past the trees on that side, and then went all the way to the back of the field where there's a little mini racetrack. And we went into the racetrack even for a little bit, up and down some hills in the racetrack, and then we went back on the other side of the field on the top, which is the high part where you can look down and everything. And he led me back towards the beginning of the field, right back to the oak tree again. So yeah, he led me all the way through. We stopped in certain places, and as we walked, these words came to me, and they were kind of almost like Jasper's words of wisdom. And this is why I want to share this with you, because this stays with me so clearly. This walk he took me on had real meaning, and these were the words that came through. This is what Jasper's words of wisdom are. He says, "Follow the sun, stay close to nature, follow what feels alive. Let your nose lead you towards adventure. Meet the hills head on. Take shortcuts when they help. Take detours when they're needed. Pause often. Use all your senses. Sometimes you'll need to go backwards before you can move forwards. And always return to where you began." So this is Jasper's words of wisdom. And as we walk there, I took a recording of this. I recorded my own words after the walk because I didn't want to forget it. And just wanted to bring this in here because this was so poignant and it will stay with me for a long time. To finish off, I just want to say a few words in memory of him. And some may ask how a dog can be a teacher. But Jasper answered that question every single day of his life. He was a really, really big presence. He continues to be. And I just want to say, Jasper, thank you for every woodland walk, every beach adventure, every muddy walk, every laugh, every lesson, every quiet moment of companionship. Thank you for helping me become the person I am today. I miss you every single day. But I know you haven't really left. You've simply become part of the path in our walk. And every time I choose presence, every time I pause in the sunshine, every time I slow down enough to notice the birds, every time I feel the wind on my face, I know you're walking right beside me. Thank you for being my beautiful darling boy, my companion, my comfort, my mirror, my wisdom keeper, my teacher. I always follow the sun with you and for you until we meet again. And now I breathe for both of us. Thank you. Let's take another breath together, if this might help you. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more. In, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you for listening. And you can continue this breath if it helps you settle. I know this was an emotional episode. I'm so glad you stayed until now. Sending you much love. Until next time. Bye.
Thank you for joining me on this journey inwards. May the whispers you heard today echo into your daily life, gently guiding, healing, and reminding you of who you truly are. If this episode stirred something in your heart, I invite you to follow, share, or leave a review. It helps the medicine reach those who need it most. And if you feel called to go deeper, connect with me. Until next time, stay rooted, stay open, and keep listening to the whispers from within.